Joining me in studio now in Washington, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. And Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Well, thank you, Harris.
Here's where I want to start. I mean, there have been so many developments, but first of all, overnight we saw three things happening, and one was movement with SWIFT and taking away the ability for Russia to move around its money. First, talk to me about that. And that's a big sanction that people have been calling for.
It is, and this is the international transaction structure. And at first, there was a lot of hesitancy from Europe, particularly Germany. Great Britain was out front calling for this. And we worked together, the Western Alliance, NATO, all of us. And basically what has happened now is we're going to be targeting these Russian banks. They cannot be on this alliance. And this will make a big difference in slowing them down financially, because this is the gold standard of how people make transactions around the world.
We're learning this information, by the way, Senator, from a senior official with the White House talking with Fox News. So it's a three-pronged approach that we were told to expect, you know, yesterday, today, and in the very near future. So another step in this is to put together a joint alliance of people to go after some of the assets of the oligarchs and in Russia. What does that do exactly? I mean, to go out and collect somebody's yacht.
I love this because it's personal. Vladimir Putin has shown what he is. He's a thug. He's a despot. He's shown his colors. And the people of Ukraine, as your correspondents just showed us, has certainly shown their courage, their colors. And so going after his yachts, going after the thugs around him, the oligarchs, doing it where we know where the money are. They're not, for the most part, in the U.S. They're in other countries. That's why we couldn't do this alone and why President Biden felt that we had to work with the rest of the world. But this gets personal, and it's very important. And the fact that the Ukrainians have put up so much more resistance than people ever thought possible. It's a big country. They have a big heart. They are determined to resist.
All right. The third point in all of this three-pronged approach now, is to freeze assets with the central bank. And, you know, we're seeing something that we haven't seen in a long time, and that is thousands of people in the streets of Russia who are protesting against the war on Ukraine. I mean, have you seen what they've been doing to these people? I mean,
No.
We know that it's a cruel world over there for them to speak out. They don't have freedom of speech as we do here in America. So they're arresting people, picking them up off the streets for even a sign that says no more war, that sort of thing. If the ruble falls because of frozen assets through the central bank and other sanctions, what happens on the streets of Russia?
Exactly, because you're going to start seeing the effects on people economically in Russia. They are already protesting. There were protests in the past. He basically gets rid of all opponents by either poisoning them, putting them in jail. We've seen this happen over and over, including attacking people internationally. And so this is his playbook. But the fact that we are joining with the rest of the world to hit him hard on sanctions makes a big difference economically and will give them a further reason to take to the streets.
Look, I hear you, and I've been reading transcripts of recent interviews you've given about the power that you think that sanctions have. On, I believe it was about January 16th or so, you were in Ukraine. First of all, I want to know what you told the president when you came back, because at that point, estimates had troops on the ground at the border, Russian invaders, numbering 100,000. The president still wasn't moving. What did you say to him when you came back?
Well, first of all, we talked to President Zelensky, and we brought his words back to President Biden. Bipartisan group, very important at the time. And what we told him was that Zelensky wanted more ammunition, more arms, particularly Stingers. You saw our president, which already our government had given $650 million. You saw more arms going to Ukraine, more to come. And I think really importantly, you see arms from Germany now. They're breaking a precedent by allowing their arms to be sent to Ukraine. This was a major ask of the Ukrainians that we conveyed to President Biden. The second was, of course, more immediate sanctions. And I think what President Biden told us, which was understandable, working with the Germans was key. And then you see some of the changes with Germany's positions.
All right. I hear you on that. I'm going to push back.
Okay.
We've known that those troops were coming in since early October. We actually didn't put any of these sanctions and didn't push for the SWIFT. I know that the president can't do that unilaterally, but we're the biggest voice in the room. We spend the most money in that NATO room. And so he wasn't moving the needle on that. And they were able to build from a few thousand on the ground in October to over 100,000 when you were there. Why is it, do you think, that after, and you're one of the most persuasive people I've ever met. I covered you as, you know, as a DA in Minnesota. So you weren't able in that group, that delegation who came back from Ukraine on January 16th, right in there, you're talking to him. On the 19th, the president goes on the air and starts talking about minor incursions and how we're not going to do much and how I'm going to have to twist the arms of people in NATO to get them to come along. Was he not listening to you? Did you not make the kind of appeal that I've seen you make on other issues?
We made a strong appeal, but I think you have to see the strategy here, and I want to make this very clear. We're going to have differences on tactics, Democrats, Republicans, and the like, and you've certainly had guests on your show that are different. But I think as you'll hear from Secretary Rice, and what an honor to have her on the show, this has got to be bipartisan. We have to work on this together. Next week before us will be an aid package that's critical for cybersecurity, to make sure we're protecting Ukraine from that.
$6.4 billion.
For more help with arms, for aid to these refugees, the incredible stories. So right now, I've got to look at, as opposed to the divides and differences we may have, how we're going to handle this going forward. And to do this, I have been actually heartened by the world leaders, from liberals to conservatives, working together, and the same thing is happening in our country. That's how you stand up against this guy. He was betting we were all going to be divided, that we had no way to come together, and he is seeing the opposite.
Look, he was probably betting on something that former President Donald Trump brought up at CPAC, the largest gathering of conservatives last night. He was betting on the fact that Trump might still be the only one that wouldn't see an invasion on his watch. Have you seen this? Watch.
Under Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. I stand as the only president of the 21st century on whose watch Russia did not invade another country.
Your reaction?
I have real trouble with that, because I was in Ukraine with Senator McCain and Senator Lindsey Graham, stood on those front lines. And I will say, while Donald Trump was president, Russia remained in Crimea, and there was still, of course, major problems in the Donbass region. Secondly, it was Donald Trump that signed the agreement to bring the troops home from Afghanistan. So, and it is Donald Trump who recently praised Vladimir Putin as being a genius, and did the same thing throughout his presidency. So yeah, I have problems with that. But you know what? I don't want to dwell on that right now. What I want to dwell on, which I just talked to Secretary Rice, was how we go forward, Democrats and Republicans together. That means standing tall, showing who we support, Ukrainians,
your Ukraine
my flag, and making very clear that we're going to get them the aid and the help that they need.
Yeah, 2 points that I would double back if we had a whole hour. Why President Biden didn't move faster. And I know you pushed, and you've described it.
I will say this. One thing that Biden did differently than we've seen before is he got the intelligence out there in a big, big way. Yeah. With Great Britain, we put that out, though the world wouldn't believe Vladimir Putin. They believed us, and they believed the Ukrainians, because we got the information out there.
I'd also push back on the fact that the generals came clean about the president didn't listen to them on how we should leave Afghanistan. But you and I will get together again.
Excellent.
SCOTUS reaction. So the nominee for U.S. Supreme Court by President Biden, Judge Jackson, will be on the Hill. Your committee will be looking at her confirmation. What do you expect this week?
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting with her. And I will say one thing that I think people need to know about her. She's actually had more experience as a judge than 4 of the people who are currently on the Supreme Court. She'll be one of only 2 with actual trial judge experience on the Supreme Court. She's someone whose brother was in law enforcement. One of her uncles was the police chief of Miami, received great praise from the Federation of Police, the Fraternal Order of Police. I think she's going to defy some expectation. It's one of the reasons she got bipartisan support throughout her confirmation hearings for other positions.
We literally have 15 seconds left. Already criticism from Republicans that she's far left. In fact, Jonathan Turley, who's an attorney who'll join us on the panel later, said that this is a political deliverable, a good one for President Biden, because the other candidates were not as far left. He mentioned a couple in particular. There could have been more consensus around political consensus around a candidate.
I just find those words offensive, honestly, because what I look at is this incredibly experienced woman who came up from 2 parents, public school teachers, did everything she could, star of her high school debate team, and is now nominated for the Supreme Court. And I think she's going to be a great judge.
Senator Klobuchar, when you go back to the Twin Cities, please pass along my thoughts and my love. I loved working there. Good to see you.
Thank you. I will do that. Thanks, Harris.
All right.